After watching Ahsoka episode 3 and now 4, it sparked a huge conversation in our watch party. Can Sabine use the Force, and will it break George Lucas's canon? The short answer? Yes, she can use the Force, and no, it won't break George Lucas's canon. But let's go into why, and I'll be drawing from some old interviews and the films to back up what I'm saying. I would like to start off by saying I won't spoil anything big in episode 4, but there is one moment I would like to address. We see in the trailer moments where Sabine attempts a Force push. Did she use the Force for the first time? My thinking is no, but she made the intention. Shin Hati reacts, but it's more like a flinch, and like when you see someone go to hit you. Me and a friend did listen to it extra closely, and it did make the sound when people use the Force, but it's just like Qui-gon said. Your focus determines your reality. A similar point made by Ahsoka, it's only natural for Sabine to struggle with this kind of focus. The ability to quieten her mind and trust in an unknown power is difficult, especially with being a Mandalorian. There's very much a notion of self-reliance, and the Force being treated as a separate entity wouldn't help that. Huyang made it known to Sabine that her affinity with the Force is worse than every Jedi he has ever met, and wouldn't pass the entrance test to get in. Now, this on its own doesn't inherently mean Sabine isn't capable of wielding the Force. It simply means she is not at a level they would deem suitable, which is why I'm confused when I see people saying they would freak out if she used the Force. In the end, everyone is capable to some kind of degree. Is it just a feeling? Can you manipulate it? And even those who we know can use the Force have so many different kinds of abilities. Who is to say that any one character doesn't have a single one of those Force abilities on a minor level? I look forward to seeing how it progresses with Sabine though, because the lesson has always been that the Force resides in all living beings. And I think we should head back to the beginning. In A New Hope, Obi-Wan Kenobi says, "It's an energy field created by all living beings. It surrounds us, penetrates us, and binds the galaxy together." Now let's address the elephant in the room, Midichlorians. Ever since this was shown in Phantom Menace, it's been up for conversation, almost like a Dragon Ball power level. They're described as a microscopic life form that resides in all living cells. But ever since hearing the words, the readings are off the chart, over 20,000. Even Master Yoda doesn't have a midichlorian count that high. To which Qui-Gon replies, "No Jedi has." This divided the room and made people believe that it was in fact possible to have no midichlorians at all. But George Lucas has explained this at greater length. Everyone has midichlorians, everyone has the Force, but of course not everyone has the same amount. Qui-Gon Jinn says to Anakin, "Without the midichlorians, life could not exist, and we would have no knowledge of the Force. They continually speak to us, telling us the will of the Force. When you learn to quiet your mind, you'll hear them speaking to you." To me, this simply means everyone has the Force talking to them, but for others the voice is louder, and not everyone has learned how to quiet their mind enough to listen to it. George Lucas said, "This is the cosmology. The Force is the energy, the fuel, and without it, everything would fall apart. The Force is a metaphor for God, and God is essentially unknowable. But behind it is another metaphor which fits so well into the movie that I couldn't resist it. Midichlorians are the equivalent of mitochondria in living organisms and photosynthesis in plants. I simply combine them for easier consumption by the viewer. Mitochondria creates the chemical energy that turns one cell into two cells. And I like to think there is a unified reality to life, and that exists everywhere in the universe, and it controls things, but you can also control it." I never knew the origins of the confusion, but I'm often confused about how people think it's possible to have absolutely no Force, even after what Qui-Gon said. But he is my favourite Jedi, and I have watched The Phantom Menace an awful lot, so maybe I have just listened to those words more than most. But what if I was to tell you that there was two kinds of the Force, personal and cosmic? The personal Force is what George Lucas has already said, and that is that everyone has midichlorians. Everyone has the Force, but you need to be trained. However, the more midichlorians you have, the more accessible the Force is. This is where we see the difference, for example, between Anakin, Obi-Wan, or even Dex. They're all capable, they can all be trained, but the ceiling for each one is different. And it makes you wonder, What would happen if the Jedi lowered its requirements? How many more Jedi could there be? George said, "You have to be found and fostered. If you have more than a certain number of midichlorians, you can become a Jedi. The Jedi will train you to connect to your personal force and then to the cosmic force. You don't have much power to control the cosmic force, but you can make use of it. And the Jedi, by nature of their genetics, have more midichlorians than most." Following on from the personal force, it's pretty clear cut. Sabine should be able to use the force, it's just a matter of when. But let's round this conversation over with the cosmic force and what that all means. Jedi have little control, but when you die, you become a part of it. And this is all living beings. Qui-gon learned from the Whills on how to maintain his persona amongst the cosmic force, which George said is like becoming a god. It was based on Greek mythology, but in a much more practical sense, and without the ego, without the identity. In a way, this is true. They are now immortal and can be anywhere in the galaxy, but we are yet to see the limits of this. I almost imagine that the cosmic force is like a well that is being infinitely topped up. After all, everyone has the force, and when they die, they become a part of it. As usual, George Lucas has put all that together in an interview with Paul Duncan very elegantly, which you can find in the book, The Star Wars Archives. I hope now that you've listened to this video, we can all see how truly anyone is capable of using the Force. And if anyone is wondering, just send them my way. But as always, remember, the Force will be with you. Always.